concepts and things that are going on in the 1920s. One of the key ideas here is that this is a time period of prosperity, at least on the surface. Okay, so it's after the war, Americans are coming home, and the economy is basically bursting at the seams. The problem is, though, is that there are problems internally inside the economy. On the surface, it's kind of like the Gilded Age. Remember how the rich people were rich on the outside, looking in? It's like that in the 20s. The rich people are obscenely rich, but average American workers are not necessarily feeling the rising tide, I guess you could say. And so it's kind of like prosperity. It kind of depends on how you define prosperity. I guess if you're really wealthy, then yeah, it's good. Just a few different things that people are kind of doing for entertainment and fun, and also symbols of prosperity. You've got you've got a car here. That's a typical 1920s car. Automobiles are going to become very, very prominent in the 1920s as more and more people acquire vehicles, and we're going to make a huge shift eventually from, non-cars to cars. I guess you could, I don't even know how to say that correctly. Movies. The Academy Awards were last night. No shortage of political statements there, but this is the beginning of the movie industry, really, with silent films. Like Charlie Chaplin here was one of your first movie stars, and the movie industry started, of course, in Hollywood, California. There's plenty of reasons for that. Southern California being a wonderful climate just to live in, not too hot, not too cold, but also just it's a place where naturally, because of that climate and the location, there's plenty of room to have big studios, and that's why most of your big entertainment industry, even today, is still 100 years later, centered in Los Angeles. Other things people might be buying, like that, an ice box. That's one of your first, I guess, refrigerators, I guess you could say. Not necessarily the same thing as what you might have today at your house or whatever, but certainly a symbol of what people are buying. As you'll see in the video today, a lot of what people are buying everything in the 20s, and they're buying because they have a new way to buy stuff. It's called credit. Now, if you're like me, you got to watch out for credit cards, but that starts to take place in the 20s. Also, this is a time when you have the Republicans in power, and we will definitely get into that, if not this class period, then the next one. But Republicans are the dominant political force in the 1920s. And a lot of times in history of the United States, you have a movement and then a reaction to that movement. And in the 1910s and the 1900s, I guess you could say, you've got the progressive era where the government's trying to do a lot, right? And the government's very active and trying to improve society. And then the Americans' public mood kind of changes. They go with the Republicans. The Republicans are very anti-change. They kind of want to go back to the way things were before the progressive era. And so all the presidents during the 1920s are very much not active presidents. They're not Republicans like Teddy Roosevelt Republicans, okay? These are guys that generally believed in the whole idea of laissez-faire, right? Government not doing much, government keeping its hands off. People like Warren G. Harding, Calvin Coolidge, and Herbert Hoover. They called Calvin Coolidge Silent Cal because he didn't really talk. You see Obama talking all the time. He's all over the place. He's on Twitter even, he's on Facebook. He's just tweeting up his whatever. But I'm telling you, Calvin Coolidge was like the definition of the anti-president, if you want to call it. We'll get into those Republicans and kind of their policies, and they're very different than progressive policies. There's also a lot of conflict, which makes the 20s really fascinating. Let's just give you an example. One of them is prohibition. Where for the first time in American history, they're going to do something that is absolutely, in my opinion, insane. Illegalizing alcohol. This was a tremendously bad idea. History will probably show that. And it brings up a lot of issues today about, in our day and age, about, we're talking about marijuana legalization and stuff like that. And you've got that going on. And when I say conflict, I mean conflict in terms of morality. Like you have people that say disregard the law and we can drink. And then you have other people that are like, well, we need to enforce the law because, it's alcohol's fault that we have domestic abuse, and it's alcohol's fault that we have this problem or this problem. So it's kind of an interesting thing that's happening in the 20s. Also, this group gains in membership like crazy. This is the Ku Klux Klan. They are going to grow in membership immensely. Part of the reason is because the 20s, a lot of the political climate is a reaction against all of the immigration that's been coming into the country. And there's a lot of anti-immigrant feeling, and there's a lot of anti-diversity feeling among some. Not everybody, but especially that, and that explains why the Ku Klux Klan was able to grow like crazy. The Ku Klux Klan, what a fun group. And anybody can join. Anyways, let's go to the next slide. Now I tell this story. This is a pretty. You guys want to hear a whacked out story? Okay, here it is. This is so tripped out. Okay, so basically, a long time ago, and I'm going to go like maybe 10 years ago, there was somebody was telling me the story that teaches here. There was a professor, and they were talking about the Ku Klux Klan in class, and for whatever reason, there was kind of a bet, like the students betted him, hey, let's see what happens if you join the Ku Klux Klan. I bet you couldn't do it. And so he said, no, well, let's see what happens. So he did it, went online, filled out the application form. Yes, they had an application. I checked. Don't worry, I'm not a member, but I'm just looking. Paid the money, got the little card. And this is how stupid these Ku Klux Klan members are. They didn't check his name because his last name was Gonzalez. But that's how nutcasey these people are. Anyways.
Now they're actually inviting people of all races and sexes to join. They said that they don't want to be known as bad people anymore. They're inviting all these different races and sexes. They especially
nice of them. That sounds really cool. Let's all just erase years and years. That's very interesting. I think that, yeah.
It was really inspirational that they were having bake sales to promote their club and everything. But they're not bad people.
Not bad people. Certainly not bad. No. Just a bunch of people that wear bed sheets. Yeah. So, besides the Ku Klux Klan, thank you for sharing it. The textbook will talk about these terms when you talk about the 20s. Sometimes it's called the Roaring 20s. Other times, other people refer to it as the Jazz Age. Other times, people refer to it as the New Era. Any one of these three work. Let's just diagram each one of them. Roaring 20s, kind of taking on the economic characteristics of the 20s, like the economy doing very, very well, at least on the surface. The gross national product is good, the stock market's flying, it's good. The jazz age, because of the music, because of the culture, we'll definitely learn about that, about how the city of Harlem in New York has a tremendous African American contribution in terms of a rich musical and cultural contribution, I guess you could say. The new era, because America is slowly changing in the 20s to the modern. More homes are becoming electrified in the 20s. More people are using the automobile. More people are relying on the mass media, such as the radio, to get their information. So it's a pivotal time in a lot of ways in American history. It's a tremendous time of change in America. The video will talk about this, how modern America is born at this time. It is a tremendous time of urbanization. For the first time, more Americans live in cities. And perhaps some of that conflict we see in the 20s is because of the change and the fact that human beings by nature, I don't know about you, don't like change that much. You know, right? People just like what they like. And there's very few people that just are like, wow, I just want to totally change. In the 20s, I think America really is changing. It's struggling to define what it means to be America. You know, is America small town America, where you have tight communities and cultural values that you share? Or is America more of a city culture, you know, where you have diversity and you have different people groups that come together and stuff? And so it's kind of like in the 20s, it feels like in some ways there's a couple of different Americans. So that's why it's just such a fascinating time. There's a lot of things going on. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show this video clip for the next about 20 minutes or so. And what I'd like you to do as you watch is just look for some different trends. And that graph is just, I'm sorry, I forgot that was there. That's a graph simply showing that the changes in the rural and the urban population. As you can tell nowadays, we're pretty much an urban population, at least here in America. Maybe in Fresno, sort of. Anyways, what we're going to do is this. I'm just going to ask you as we watch the video, if you can, look for some ideas that come up about politics. What's the political situation like in the 20s? Now, we've already stated that it's Republican. But can you find anything in terms of government, politics that you can kind of draw out of this? Economic characteristics. What are some economic things going on in the 1920s? How is the economy changing? What kind of industries do we see? What's the difference between wealth and poverty, or perhaps if there even is? And then on the social cultural end of things, what are some different things happening in society and in terms of the culture in general? And feel free to make some notes. And what we'll do is, after we're all done with this, we're going to kind of just do something really weird. I'm actually going to make kind of a map of the different things that come up there, and then probably just go a little bit more in depth on the stuff that you guys see. But again, this is the 1920s, and here we go. Let's show you the video here. The video is pretty